Thanks for joining this. This is Benchmarking Made Easy with the DOE and EPA's BenchmarkMyBuilding.com. My name is Josh Wentz. I'm the Director of Product and Engineering at Lucid. Lucid is a software startup, a building energy software startup in Oakland, California. And I'll dive into some of those details in a little bit. But I'm excited to be here. And again, thanks for joining this session in particular. So this is the course description. You guys have this printed out. If you don't already, there are a few more in the back. And this is just a high-level view around what we're going to be going into. I'm not going to dive into that for now. Some of the learning objectives here is we're going to learn about the practice of energy benchmarking specifically for buildings, its advantages and limitations. We're going to learn specifically about this DOE's BenchmarkMyBuilding.com, free service for anyone to use, and look into different ways of benchmarking various buildings, keeping to that benchmark, and tracking your budget over time to make sure that you hit that. This session is going to be a little bit different, and I'm going to walk around a little bit, and it should be fun. So if you guys have phones, if you have computers, we're going to be using them today towards the end of this. So if you guys have them, I encourage you guys to use it, because this is going to not only give you a software overview, but also a software demo. If anyone has questions, I can move around and help you guys. So it's really actually going to be like a class, just as the class description for AIA as it's supposed to be. In preparation for that, I wanted everyone here, and a lot of people here work with buildings, work around buildings, but it's often pretty easy to obtain this. As I'm going throughout the presentation towards the end, we're going to use these three pieces of information. So I'm not sure if you need to text someone, email someone on your team, or if you know these three pieces of information yourself, but if you could collect your building, one building address, the main building function type, and also the building area, the total square feet of that particular building. We're going to use those three pieces of information a little bit later on. I'd just like to give everyone a quick heads up that we will be using them, so you can potentially text someone or find out on your team if you can collect those three pieces of information. Typically the building area, the square foot, is a little bit more tough for people to collect. So a bit of background, Lucid is a building energy software startup, and we've been around for about 13 years now. A bit of background about the company, we have about 50 different employees and around 700 different customers. We're a software startup that first raised a round of funding, our Series A round of funding, about 4 years ago. And that funding was backed by Formation 8, Autodesk, and GE Ventures to bring building analytics, building data online and into the cloud to really a mainstream position. And just three months ago, we were acquired by Acuity Brands. Some people know Acuity Brands, some people don't. A bit of background about Acuity Brands. Their core business model is lighting, smart commercial building lighting. And only over the past few years have they actually gained full market share of commercial building lighting over GE Philips. So while the name isn't often that well known, the market share in commercial building lighting is a pretty big impact right now. And what they've done is they're really just manufacturers, and they aren't software experts. So that's why they worked with Lucid, and that's why they acquired Lucid, so we can be the software experts and they can be the manufacturing experts. That said, those of you that might have known Lucid in the past, because again, our original product was a building energy dashboard to help dorms compete on who's spending the most energy. We've grown a lot over those 13 years of time, but some of you might have seen different engaging dashboards over the past decade of Lucid being around. We will continue to be an independent organization. So I use the analogy, it's very similar to Microsoft buying LinkedIn. That's really how Lucid and Building OS will work. We'll be an independent software vendor, and we're completely hardware agnostic. So while we have a parent company, we're completely hardware agnostic. I want to give you a bit of context around Lucid and what Lucid does. And over the 13 years that Lucid's been around, we learned that as you bring on more dorms, as you bring on new buildings, you have to build in different systems, different integrations with different building systems, whether that be a BAS system, a new BMS system, Johnson Controls, Honeywell, Automated Logic. every building's different, and a lot of different building owners like to call their building a snowflake because there are a lot of different hardware systems inside of a building, a lot of different systems that are tracking data, and if you could centralize all of that data into one consistent location, then it would make a lot more sense to actually see where you're spending the energy across your portfolio or where within one portfolio. So over the decade of time that we've been around, we've brought on not only dorms, but entire universities, entire corporations, and more recently, entire cities and states have come on to track their buildings with BuildingOS.com, mostly because they have sustainability goals. They need to meet those sustainability goals, and that includes tracking to understand where you're spending before you can save energy. So BuildingOS is a cloud-based platform that integrates, organizes, and aggregates these portfolio-wide building and metering systems. We track around 15,000 buildings, and that's over 1 billion square feet of data across the US and the world. These are just a few of the different logos of what we're tracking, and this is really just to show you that at this point we cross enterprise, we cross commercial real estate, higher education, K-12, and government institutions as well. These big brands took a long time to really gain their trust so that they can track their buildings in a consistent way and they can make sense of that data over time. So I want to give you guys context. I wish this was a little bit closer, but I'll describe all of these pieces so everyone can see it, and it should be printed for you guys as well. But I want to give you a context as to the vision. The vision that not only Lucid has, that a lot of companies have, and we just wanted to articulate it in a way that everyone really understands where we're focusing and where benchmarking kind of fits in, and how we can make benchmarking easier than it is today. The big vision here is reducing the energy of buildings on a broad scale. That's often the vision of commissioning different buildings, building and designing brand new buildings. We all want to reduce the energy of those buildings on a broad scale so that the building owner can save energy and money. And we run into, and really a lot of us will run into all of these key barriers throughout that time. The first barrier here is, why do I even care? You go and talk to a building owner, you want to commission the building, you want to reduce energy in that building, and the building owner might not be energy conscious. So the building owner, the biggest thing that we run up against, we know a lot of our customers run up against, is convincing the building owner to even care. And really, one of the big answers there is you can save money. You can save a lot of money. And what this free tool that I'll be showing you guys in a little bit does is it shows you just how much money you can spend, how your building is comparing to similar buildings. The next big question that we run into when we're working with building owners, okay, I know why, now what can I do? What can I actually do to save some of that energy and to actually save some money? And the answer to that is tracking data. If you aren't tracking the data within your buildings, you really don't know how individual buildings are consuming that energy, so you can't really even recommend something to that particular building. The next big step is, where should I focus? And one of the big answers here is you can compare across your portfolio, or you can sub-meter within individual buildings. There are various solutions there as well. And then on the how, well, how can I do it? You can implement various energy conservation measures to actually make your building work for your particular profile. For those more technical, a lot of the people in the room, answering some of these questions can be a bit easier, but everyone that's technical or non-technical, everyone's working with, say, a building owner with the pocketbook that needs to prove an ROI, and the first big step is catching their attention as to why your particular building should even start to care about getting commissioned or reducing energy for that building or a set of buildings. So I'm going to walk you through each of these steps today, and the first of which I'm going to walk you through is the why. Why do I care about saving energy at all? And I kind of want to back up a little bit to kind of broaden the spectrum here around where the market is today, around different energy conservation measure policies across the US. The one tool, there's several tools I'm going to point out to you guys just as useful tools, and yeah, this gray is not coming out great, but I'm going to describe everything. Buildingrating.org is a wonderful site. If you guys haven't heard of it yet, we use it a lot to track all the new ordinances internationally and in the US. This picture is showing you all the different building benchmarking policies that exist across the world. Primarily, you can see there are many hotspots in the US, but it's expanded dramatically over the past 5 to 10 years around governments requiring various building owners to give up their energy data so that we can understand if your building is of a certain size, how you're comparing to those similar, and then encourage you through the public consumption of that data that you individually as a building should save. You can see China, Australia getting into this, and I'm going to zoom in here to some of the building benchmarking ordinances, but you can see there are 60 plus internationally, and some of those are cities, some of those are states, and some of those are entire countries that have these building benchmarking ordinances that make it easier for energy managers, that makes it easier for engineers to come and talk to the building owner to prove that their building should save energy. And the one consistent metric that you'll see throughout this presentation is dollars, because building owners, and often those with the deeper pockets, they care about the dollars. And you're going to see with this tool that we make it much easier for you to see those dollars and see how your building compares to others more similar. I want to show you this too. This is actually not a zoom in of that particular website of buildingrating.org. This is a different website. This is by the Institute for the Market Transformation, so IMT.org. And inside of there, you can see the different ordinances across the US buildings, the US market. So you can see some of the hotspots in orange: New York, Chicago, LA, Orlando, Atlanta. But now, as you can see, entire cities, entire states are now implementing various policies to ensure that buildings are fitting in at a certain level. For those, I always like to frame what I'm talking about as if I had never heard of these things before, as if I was a beginner. And anybody not as familiar with some of these benchmarking ordinances, a general layout of what these ordinances look like is the local city, state governments at times will require buildings of a certain size to make sure that their energy data is reported. And it's often reported through Energy Star Portfolio Manager, if you guys have heard of that. And what it helps to do is if you are a building owner and you own a building, 25, 50,000 square feet or above, you have to give your data up to the city. What it helps the city to do is individual cities then put together their own public websites around how their buildings are doing. I'll show you a few examples of Chicago, New York, certain cities that really want to show that their buildings may be doing better than other cities. And what it helps to do is it helps to democratize that data so that you as a building owner can see what your neighbor looks like, or 2 doors down looks like. And all of the data is tied to particular addresses. So while it's never specifically tied to a particular logo, a particular company, it is tied to certain addresses, and that's required by law. So right now, certain cities that we've worked with at Lucid, we work with the entire city of Orlando, New York City, Berkeley, San Francisco, different states that we work with. The states actually aren't shown here, but the state of Nevada and the state of Utah have really strict energy policies as well. So they've decided to bring on their entire all state-owned buildings to Building OS to actually track, to figure out how they might be able to save energy across those. I want to parlay this into taking things back about 2 years. So in 2016, the U.S. Department of Energy, has a lot of money, and through that money, they give it to organizations to spur and fuel the private sector. I mean, that's often one of the biggest roles of the DOE and the government is to fuel the private sector. And one of the ways they went about doing that in 2016 is through this small business voucher program. And through this program, they paired Lucid, the makers of BuildingOS.com, with Lawrence Berkeley National Lab. We're luckily all in the same area. Berkeley and Lucid, they were about 20 minutes from each other, so it was really easy to collaborate. But what it did, and the purpose of this partnership, and the DOE chose certain smaller private sector companies to pair with national labs to take all of the great research that national labs are doing and to make that available to the market much faster. We, being a web software company, being paired with some of the smartest people, they were so smart, from LBNL, to take some of that research and make it available to the public at wide. And the whole goal was to, again, transform building technologies. To show you kind of a layout as to how LBNL and Lucid are set up, Lawrence Berkeley National Lab does a lot. I know a lot of people have heard of LBNL, Lawrence Berkeley National Lab, but the reason why we were paired with them is they have an open source tool called Commercial Building Energy Saver that ties into multiple other tools below. Open Studio, Energy Plus, different energy modeling programs through the DOE, also Energy Star Portfolio Manager, and Target Finder are very similar. They're pretty much one and the same. And then the DOE Buildings Performance Database as well. For context, for both Target Finder and for Portfolio Manager, they're both referencing CBEXT, the Commercial Building Energy Consumption Survey, to actually pull from some of these large data sets of buildings that are representative of billions of square feet. So you can actually compare your building to those statistically similar to yours. And then Lucid, we focus on user interfaces. While Lawrence Berkeley National Lab in the research space focuses on engines and making sure the building science behind some of the engines are fully accurate and have been tuned. I mean, some of these tools have been developed since the 1970s. Energy Plus, eQuest, some people use DOE 2 maybe to do some of your energy modeling. That's been developed since the 1970s. This tool that I'm showing you today takes advantage of years and years of research, and it puts it in your pocket. So it's much easier to access databases that have been developed over a long time. Lucid focuses on user interfaces. Our primary product is buildingos.com. That's the subscription-based model. BenchmarkMyBuilding.com is the free model, and that's what I'll be focusing on demoing with you guys and showing you throughout today. I've already highlighted some of these things, number of buildings, number of integrations, number of customers. But yeah, all of this was made possible through the Department of Energy. More recently, the Department of Energy has written different success stories. So I'm not sure if you guys follow different blogs, but they're very excited about this because it takes our public tax dollars and pushes it towards a free and public tool. So it makes a really full circle element to not only make something useful for the public, but also fuel the private sector. This is a free tool that we use as a private sector company, and others use as well. I was talking with Senseware in the exhibitor hall, and the founder was saying, "Oh, that would be a helpful sales tool for us as well, just to really gauge dollar savings on the fly, on your phone, as you're working with a particular building owner." And that's why I asked you guys to collect those 3 pieces of information a little bit earlier. So this is BenchmarkMyBuilding.com. And what Lucid does best, and what Lucid has always done best, is design. We're really web and internet experts, and we have been before web services and web applications have really exploded. Because we've been around for about 13 years. And design is a huge part of our DNA at Lucid. The original name for Lucid was actually Lucid Design Group. So our founder likes to say design is our middle name. What we do is we take really complex things and we make it simple for those less technical. It still has all of the same technical accuracy that you would use if you were to dive into the particular underlying tools and engines that we're pulling from. But we make it much more approachable for those less technical. And as you can see in the tool right here, high level, we're only collecting 3 things about your building, mostly just to simplify this. I need a high level estimate around where my building is compared to those similar. And this second part here is optional. And I'll describe that because I often have a lot of questions after that, and I'll answer it during the demo session. But all you need at the very top is your building address. So that's going to autofill with Google Maps. Your building type. Those building types were defined by Energy Star, not by us. So we use the same Energy Star portfolio manager types to benchmark with respect to. And your building size. Using just those 3 inputs, we can give you what the median for your building type, size, and location looks like, the 75th percentile and the 90th percentile. And I'm going to show you what the graphics look like, but what the graphics end up doing is it's almost as if you're taking a class, you're back in grade school, and you're either getting an A, and the 90th percent, I got a 92%, a 94%, I got an A on the exam. Or you've got maybe a C or a B on the exam. And we really represent some of the graphics with respect to 90th percentile and above, 75th percentile above, or if you're below the median, so you can understand where you may fit. You can also personalize your report. This is bonus points, these two. If you can actually gain the actual numbers of these two, there'll be a bit that I'll review in the very end of the demo. But if you guys want to also reach out to figure out what is the certain annual energy cost and what is the annual building energy consumption. This is in USD dollars, and that's in KBTU. The KBTU would be a combination of multiple energy resources depending on the building. Within the tool, too, it's not shown here, there's also a really easy way to enter a lot of different units. So if you want to enter therms and kilowatt hours and have everything sum up correctly to KBTUs, you can do that with a quick tool that pops up there. So this is the inputs that you add. 3 high-level things, type, size, and location. 2 optional items being your annual building energy cost, annual building energy consumption. If you give us the bottom 2, you're going to get a personalized report. And I'll show you what that looks like. After entering that, these are the 2 different outputs that you will get. And this is accessing millions of buildings. This is accessing a data set representative of millions of buildings, actual buildings around 600, 700,000 buildings. I'll show you what that means in a second, to give you this in a matter of seconds or minutes. So I think what we were most excited about through being partnered with Lawrence Berkeley National Lab is we didn't even know this level of information was available. We knew Energy Star had tremendous value. We knew if you dug down really deep, you might be able to find something and use that for various tools, but it was never engaging like this, so that's why we went out of our way to partner with LBNL to make sure that it was engaging. So the left side is showing you median benchmarks, and the very first card, we call these boxes cards, the very first output or card that you'll see there is what the median annual energy cost is for your particular building type, size, and location. You can see exactly how we got this. Each of these are stamped with really big logos because we're just an interface. We're just a web interface giving you a window into what Energy Star has and what the DOE Building Performance Database has in the matter of seconds. This next card or output here shows you the median, the 75th percentile, and the 90th percentile. So these are the dollars that I was talking about. The very next graphic that you'll see is based off of consumption, energy use intensity. So we also cared very deeply about the technical side as well, so you'll see that in the very next item right here. On the right side, you'll see personalized benchmarks. And those personalized benchmarks are based off of your annual energy cost and your annual energy consumption that you had given us in the original screen. And what it does is it just gives you a quick range. If you're in the, say, 25th percentile, the 30th percentile, we're going to give you a range of different various saving opportunities from a very high level. We're not saying that none of this is guaranteed. It's really just a high-level view as to the range of cost savings that might be available for your building compared to similar buildings. And what you can see on the bottom right there is you compared to the median 75th percentile or 90th percentile. So depending on where you are, you're going to slot in to one of those different ranges there. This is actually one of the most unique graphs that we have here. graphics on the right and left are pulled from Energy Star. This graphic right here is pulled from the DOE's building performance database. These are real buildings. And the buildings on the right and left are a statistical model based off of CBEX, the Commercial Building Energy Consumption Survey. But these are real buildings. So while you'll see kind of a high-level view of the cost and consumption values that are tuned to your particular zip code, your particular climate zone through that zip code, your actual size of building, and the type, and it will adjust depending on those three values. These are based off of buildings within your peer group. So what this is saying, for those that can't read it, we've found 2,345 buildings in your peer group. Here's how they rank in the U.S. Department of Energy's database. And this shows you a range of your site energy use intensity from low to high. And I'll show you really a few examples as to where that data is coming from and how it's useful. So to zoom in, because that was pretty small, again, I just wanted to show you, this is what you get with just 3 inputs. Type, size, and location. Both the high-level dollar and the median 75th and 90th percentile. We kind of think of it, we've talked about it a lot, as kind of being a cost calculator for your building. It's a really easy way. It's just like you're entering numbers into a calculator, but instead of putting it into a calculator, you're putting it into BenchmarkMyBuilding.com to get an outputted dollar, just to give a high-level estimate as to where my building may sit compared to those similar. This is the equivalent. You've already seen the equivalent. I guess what I'm going to jump into here is kind of describing where this particular graph comes from. I was speaking a little bit earlier around how there are many different city ordinances that track the data for buildings 25, 50,000 square feet and above and put it onto a website. And the upper left-hand corner, I'm just showing you the same graphic that I was showing you before, which is all the different cities and states that have these policies. And the bottom left, you're seeing in the background the Chicago Energy Benchmarking website. You can go and search for Chicago Energy Benchmarking building site, and you're going to get this site. And you can see a whole lot of different dots of different locations throughout Chicago of buildings, 25, 50,000 square feet or above. Every city is a little bit different around where that particular threshold is. And that's all of their data. In the upper right-hand corner is New York City's energy and water benchmarking. So you can actually, I don't know, you can see the kind of silhouette of Manhattan there and a series of different colors of buildings around how that particular building is performing. Those are just 2 examples, Chicago and New York. What the DOE Building Performance Database is, and to be honest, I didn't know what it was before working with the DOE and LB&L. The DOE always has a new tool. And I didn't know particularly what the Building Performance Database was or what value it could add, is it takes these city ordinances across the U.S. The U.S. Department of Energy creates partnerships with each individual city. I mean, in many ways, the U.S. DOE has become a catalyst for various cities to create these policies. So they have these various partnerships with all the different cities. For you to access the Chicago data, the New York data, the Orlando data would take a lot of time for anyone on your team to access that data, collect the data, and then make sense of how my building across all of these building type, size, and location may compare. What the DOE Building Performance Database does on an annual basis is it brings down all of those buildings that were collected and it puts it into this particular database, the Buildings Performance Database. What we've done is this is really just a view into that. So this is showing you specific buildings across these various ordinances and other public data sets that Lawrence Berkeley National Lab and the DOE was able to collect, how that range of site energy use intensity compares. So what we do for this particular graphic, if anyone's curious, is we do broaden the spectrum a little bit. We're not looking for your particular square footage. We're looking for a range of square footages similar to yours. And we're looking for any building of that same time zone. So it's not necessarily zip code or city-specific, as some of the dollars, as you can see, are very city, zip code, and state-specific. This is a broadened spectrum. But what it does is it gives you an actual range of real buildings across all of these ordinances that exist at your fingertips. This is, again, on the opposite side. If you were to look at the personalized view, this is where you can see the similar building spend and how much you might be able to save throughout that. This answers the really important question as to why do I care? And the why do I care, the answer there is you can save money, because everyone cares about money. What we're going to dive into now is the what. So I'm a building owner, and I now know that generally I can save $60,000 to $90,000 on my building. That's great. I believe you. Let's do it. Well, what can I do now is often the next question. And I know a lot of people in the room are dealing with building owners to kind of collect certain data to do any type of commissioning work to improve how the building performs over time. And the what here, what can I do, is track your data. That's the very first step. That's where Building OS really fits in really well. Because, again, I think of us as being internet experts. My background is in architectural engineering. So I went to Penn State. I studied the mechanical option of architectural engineering and used to do energy modeling right after school. I worked for an architect in Chicago, and I was using train trace all the time. And it was not fun because I also studied internet science. So I always wanted to work at this intersection of buildings and computers. And what Building OS does best is, when I was in school, there was no such thing as an operating system for a building that's online. They launched 4 years ago, whenever I started, and it's been fun. And really, all Building OS is the culmination of all of these integrations. Like I said, our original product was a building dashboard, and I was having a conversation with Tim, I believe, over lunch around different engaging graphics that our original dashboard would show you. So some of our early dashboards to help engage, say, elementary school students used empathetic cages, we called them. Because elementary school students don't really understand graphs, we used different characters. So you would have a different facial expression. If the building's performing well, that facial expression for the elementary school is going to smile. If the building's not performing well, then it's going to be an upset screen. And as we grew over the 13 years, we had to bring on new buildings. And with those new buildings came one of these new logos. So for us to onboard this particular building, or this entire set of buildings, okay, now we have to figure out the GE. How can we figure out how this GE submetering might be able to bring up into the cloud? How can we get Itron, Honeywell, Obvious AquaSuite, Johnson Controls, Delta, Schneider, all of these different logos that may be connected direct or may be connected through your BAS, your BMS system online? The one thing I was asked earlier, and I want to be clear about, is these integrations aren't just building automation systems, building management systems. They also span other software tools, such as Energy Star Portfolio Manager, the DOE Buildings Performance Database, Weather Underground, so you can bring in the different weather data for your buildings, utility billing systems. So at certain points, we'll work with direct utility providers to bring in your bills, or we'll have a third party that works with those particular providers. You can see different solar panel systems up here, lighting systems, and this is really just the beginning. Again, we are a vendor agnostic system. We focus primarily on software. So even the acquisition of Lucid really won't change what we do. We're constantly bringing on new integrations, and we'll handhold the building owner or an energy manager, whoever it may be, and obtaining the data of your particular building, bringing it into one place. So it's much more actionable for me to take that data and make use of it for understanding how it's performing, and then doing there are various tools to allow you to understand how you might be able to save energy, or you can export it and use other tools as well. This is just showing you that we're pulling different utility interval data, we're pulling weather data and build data as well. The next big question that gets asked is where? Where can I save energy? And And we often bring on entire portfolios of buildings, 100+ buildings, the entire state of state-owned buildings. And typically when you have various sustainability goals, whether it be within a corporation or a larger entity, you have to pinpoint and focus on one particular building. And then after you know where across my portfolio, then you can dive into particular items within the particular building. So we like to illustrate this with what we call a Building OS zoom in. And each of these levels are available at buildingos.com at the portfolio, building, and tenant level. Because depending on what you're trying to optimize, you might need to look at one of those three. And this is actually, I like to show this to start because it's basically just a map with pins, which may be how the building owner was making sense of where all of my buildings are. But this is effectively the home screen of our portfolio dashboard. And what this is showing you is all the different buildings owned across the portfolio. And this is the product and the web solution that was launched 4 years ago. Prior to this, we were just an engaging dashboard, but we realized the value in all of those integrations, the 160+ integrations, were the integrations. It wasn't the graphics, it wasn't the UI, it was our expertise in those particular logos and to bringing them into one place. This is showing you a map at the very top, recently viewed buildings. These are high-level summaries of electricity use, KBTUs, water use, dollars throughout your portfolio. This is actually, I chose this one specifically for this group. This is a breakdown of the energy use intensity of your particular buildings. So you're actually looking at a kilowatt hour per square foot. So you can more equally compare across your buildings. And just for context, while the graphic looks super simple, the hardware devices behind all of these buildings are often very, very different. This could be Honeywell, this could be Johnson Controls, this could be Automated Logic, but we don't care. And as a building owner, you really don't care. But what you want to know is which building is spending the most, which is spending the least, and this helps you do that. This is an engaging platform in that you can create one or many different visualizations or stories to help with that. This is then the building profile. If you zoom into one of those pins we were looking at, you can look at a building profile. And this particular profile should look similar. I'm sure a lot of you have LinkedIn or Facebook. This was designed to make it look like the building's version of their LinkedIn or Facebook, where the upper left is showing you who the building is, its location, its type, its size, the number of floors, the number of occupants, high-level summary. And we like to say the right is really how that building's feeling. How is it actually performing over time? I often think of Building OS as being a pulse to a building. It allows you, beyond construction of a building, beyond a commissioning project, during a commissioning project, after a commissioning project, into seeing how any changes may have improved the building. And this is a quick view into showing you exactly how things may be trending over time. The other zoom in here is the tenant view. So tenants may be just occupying one room within a building. If you're, say, a department within a university, you might be the math department. You might be tracking this room here, this whole building here, and another room over here in this other building. And this helps you dissect and cross, have different cross sections of buildings so you can see how that particular tenant compares across the particular buildings. The next big how here is how can I save energy? And the how, what we often like to say, there are 25 different apps. And I'm going to stand up here and say, right now, the experts are in this room. They're not in these apps. Really, data and graphs mean nothing to those that don't know, have no idea what it means. So the energy managers, the different commissioning team members in here, this will help in actually working with a building owner, engaging with some of that data. As someone in one of the other sessions was saying they wanted a more real-time view of how the data is flowing over time, what might be the before and after. These apps, and there's a project measurement and verification app here, different build trends and breakdown, trend analysis, heat map, will help in enabling really the experts. And really the experts are in this room, enabling you to have a full Swiss Army knife of different tools to engage with the building owner on a regular basis. A really successful story I want to say is we've more recently, over the past year, partnered with one of the largest real estate firms in the nation, and their energy management team is now using Building OS primarily to go into various owned buildings of that real estate firm and to prove different ROI values just by collecting utility bill data. And again, you don't need anything advanced for this. Certain customers upload CSVs of bills because that's what they have. You can take those CSVs and look at all those same graphics that I was showing you. What I want to do now with everyone, and I have a small prize. So I actually do have a prize. I know you were joking, but it's a really small prize, and it's really just going to be for bragging rights, to be honest. It's such a small prize, so don't get too excited about what it is. But what I want to do is I'm going to answer questions as different people kind of jump in and input some of your building type sizes and locations. So at the very beginning, I asked you to collect 3 things. And those 3 things are listed right here: your address, your type, and your size of building. You can go to BenchmarkMyBuilding.com, which again is the free model. BuildingOS.com is a subscription model. BenchmarkMyBuilding.com, funded through the Department of Energy and Lawrence Berkeley National Lab, is free. So anyone can use it. You can use it on any project that you might be working on. If you're working with a building owner that might not be that technical, you can jump to this tool and give them an estimate as to how they're doing. So you can jump in from a laptop, jump in from a phone, and enter your various information. I don't know how I'm going to do this. I guess I'll start by proposing this and see who may be the first one. So kind of the mini competition, just to keep everyone engaged. I mean, competition always wakes me up. So if we'll wake everyone up for this portion. If you can get on your phone, you can get on your laptop, and entering the top 3 pieces of information, that's relatively easy. Entering these 2 can be a little bit more challenging. So you might have had a more recent interaction with your building owner, with a various project, what your annual energy cost is, and that might be the before. That might be the before the commissioning, and what the annual building energy consumption is. And then you can choose a type. The first person to call me over with a personalized report, so that's a little bit harder. That's the right one there, with not only your address type and size and the cost and consumption, you get a small prize. So I'm going to try to take questions at the same time, but if anyone already has their personalized report, I'll come over. If I can see your personalized report, then that's great. And I'll give you the small prize. But as I'm doing that, and as you guys are collecting that, again, feel free to stop me. Actually, whoever does that, stand up. I think that's better. That way I can answer questions if some people want to raise their hands. But if you're the first one to get a personalized report on the right, feel free to stand up. I'll come check it out, and you'll get a small prize. But yeah. This is, again, an overview of, let me see what else is here. The next is question. I'll leave it here. So I'll open it up for any questions that anyone might have. But again, I'm super excited to be here and glad you guys chose to come to this session. Yes?
You said this, but I just wanted to hear it again. The building performance database, they're updating that with the local benchmarking data?
They update it on an annual basis based off of partnerships that they have. Yes, we've got one.
Is that every single?
No, it's not every single municipality. It's right now larger cities. Over time, the Department of Energy and Lawrence Berkeley National Lab will work with more. So if you're working with a certain ordinance that may want to submit your data, they would be more than happy to submit that to that database. Yeah. All right, we've got okay. So this is the median report. So we got the left side, and we got someone almost there. We got someone with a median report, which ends up with $52,000 For residence hall, dormitory buildings, 36,000 square feet in New Orleans. That's the first step, is just getting medians. If you have the annual energy, there we go, okay. So we've got a personalized report. So this particular building could save $58,000 to $694,000 annually. That's a broad range, and the reason for that is it's a really large building, 81,000 square feet in Los Angeles. 810,000 square feet. But basically, at this point, this building is 28% higher from a dollars perspective. And if you keep scrolling down, you can also see the energy use intensity. So your energy use intensity and your consumption may be different than your cost. And that's the case right here, where the cost values are higher, worse than the median for this particular building. And the energy use intensity looks like it's between the median and 75th percentile. Electrically heated. It's a small gift, but again, this guy's got bragging rights. It's a Lucid Lucid water bottle. It's better than my water bottle right here. Any other questions in the audience? Yeah.
Question. The report I'm looking at doesn't show 75% percentile and 90%. It shows 0.
So you're bringing up a unique situation, which is certain building types. Through Energy Star, there's not enough information through the Energy Star's database and the DOE's database to give you a full 75th or 90th percentile. So because it's not yet statistically meaningful with the full set of data, all we can give you is the median. And that's really just, again, I think of what we've done with BenchmarkMyBuilding.com as sitting upon the shoulders of giants. We're not doing the hard work I think was done by Energy Star and the DOE, and we're just giving you a window into that. So that's the situation there. Yep?
On your EUI, you said they use the site information and not a source information.
Yes.
Because I know energy, our portfolio manager sometimes will have a source and then EUI calculated. I can't figure it out.
I know, that's where we were too. I actually, just a quick story about that. The researcher that we were working with at Lawrence Berkeley National Lab, he was actually running some of these tools through terminal, like really deep level of the computer. I was like, well, and then I saw $1, and then I saw the EUI, and I was like, well, how did you get that? I've never seen that. I didn't even know that was there. It was a big aha moment for us to be like, if we were to open this up for those less technical to access it, then it could be incredibly valuable. I was the same. Or if you go to the Energy, you can run similar reports to this through Energy Star's Target Finder Portfolio Manager, but you're inundated with the source EUI, the site EUI. Like if you're not very technical, you're like, I don't know which one to look at. We try to simplify it by just showing the site EUI for your particular building. You can always dive deeper into Energy Star's source tools, but this again is a high-level way for you to gauge, for the building owner to gauge. Yeah.
How often is the CBEX data updated?
It's a great question. So CBEX data was last updated in 2003. So you got some older data there. But what's happening in August of this year, August 2018, is that's being updated to the don't quote me on this, it's 2011 or 2013, somewhere in that range, data set. And what's happening there is all of the Energy Star scores will change after that. And all of the outputted amounts that you're getting from here will change from that because we're inheriting all of that Energy Star data. So around August of this year is whenever Energy Star is flipping over to a more recent data set for CBEX. For those less familiar with CBEX, the Commercial Building Energy Consumption Survey, what they've done is it's very similar to the census for buildings. But it's not every building. The DOE and the Energy Information Administration, there's a lot of government agencies that I'm balancing. The Energy Information Administration is the one that collects CBEX. And they do that, I want to say, on every 5 to 10 years. But after going through the survey, that data set isn't always statistically significant. They try to make it statistically significant by hand-picking particular buildings and particular locations so that you can abstract that and choose type, size, and location, and the model can fit to your particular building. So yeah, the answer is in August of this year, that will be updated to 2011, 2013 CBEX data. So, like I said, my name's Josh Wentz. Let me see. I think my contact information is somewhere down here. That's so tiny. It's on the tool. My email's josh@luciddg.com. You can find me on LinkedIn at Josh Wentz, Twitter at Josh Wentz, joshwentz.net. I also have various business cards if you guys wanted to connect at all. We're happy to help with any benchmarking tools or benchmarking projects that you might be working on. And again, BenchmarkMyBuilding.com is just the free version. You can dive deeper with Building OS to track your data and make sense of how your commissioning projects may be before and after. And then we often think of it as just being kind of a gift back to the building owner. It gives the building owner some sense of how things are actually tracking over time. I've always, like I said, having studied at the intersection of buildings and computers in school, I've always wanted to make smart buildings, and I feel like this is a big step for us to get smart buildings where the building actually has a pulse, it actually knows what's happening, and you can see what's happening about the building on your phone. So you can access both Benchmark My Building and Building OS from your phone, a tablet, or the computer. Well, thank you guys so much for your time.